Hey everyone. So with that rusty crusty 59 flower car out of the way, the next one on the rack is this awesome 61. So this one came to us from a customer in Kansas. He is one of those people that's more than capable of doing it himself, but no space, no time, so he brought it to me to take up my space and time. I swear someday we're gonna get a small vehicle in the shop and then I'll have room for my stuff too. But until then, we'll keep working on these big old land yachts. And this one is really, really nice, really clean. I'm looking forward to digging into it. So let me show you around it real quick before we tear in and put this thing on the ground. Hang on just a sec, I'll flip the camera around. All right, here we go. So 61 Caddy Coupe de Ville. Looks really good on the stock hubcaps with white walls, but he's actually got some big old 20-inch something's ordered, and I'll have to post up some pictures on the social media once he gets that swapped over. But this thing is just so nice. Super, super clean. Runs like a, what do they say? Runs like a top. And yeah, it's just a good, solid, honest car. It's not perfect, but that way you don't have to feel bad doing some modification to it and making it your own. So we're gonna be building out a simple trunk setup using the airlift 3P management, a couple tanks, couple compressors. He brought us a PowerMaster alternator conversion to go in place of the generator so we can get some good voltage going into it. What else? I think we're throwing some seat belts in it for him while it's up on the rack. And then just giving it a once over underneath to make sure everything's solid. Oh, he sent some rear lower link arms and bushings and upper ball joint for the rear wishbone. I think the front suspension's all fine, so it's just the rear we're gonna freshen up while we've got it apart. So yeah, let me get it up on the rack and we'll start tear down today. All right, suspension came apart pretty easily. Nothing really fought back. So coils and shocks out of the rear so far. We're replacing the lower arms with ones the customer brought. And the upper wishbone we're going to rebuild with new bushings and an upper ball joint. But before we do that, we drilled out the center hole that's on these frames for our 1/2-inch all thread to pass through so we can bolt the upper bag cup in. And then we drilled out a 3/4 inch hole next to that for the airline to pass through. And then we'll sleeve the airline with some rubber fuel line just to keep it from chafing on that hole where it passes through. Other than that, the rear's pretty straightforward, pretty similar to the 59. So we'll end up replacing the shocks. They were pretty crusty. And then when it's got the new lower arms and upper bushings and everything, we'll reassemble there. Up front, come underneath. Same deal, everything came apart pretty easily. Pulled the old coils, shocks, removed the tension rods for now so we can work. And we jacked up this side of the suspension until the lower arm touched the frame, and marked out where it looks like the tension rod wants to contact the frame right here at full drop. So we're basically gonna open up the pocket a little bit, just trim it out to the edge of the lip, and then come up and over around these rivets, radius those corners, and that'll expose enough to keep the bag from ever rubbing on anything, and then give us clearance for that tension rod. And then at that point, it looks like the lower arm will swing all the way up until the upper arm is fully bound. So that's basically as low as we can get the front of this thing. So once that's done, we can take some measurements, do some bag brackets, reassemble, and then start figuring out the front shock mounts, because we're gonna try to mount those. It looks like probably right through in this range somewhere. Probably go to the inside of the frame rail up next to the radiator. But we'll take a look at that and see exactly what makes sense once it's all together. So yeah, let's get these cut out and see how everything looks from there. So with this trimmed out, it should put the cross member on the ground and gives us plenty of clearance for the bags and everything. Got a couple welds to do here where the seams used to be riveted together down here. We just want to make sure this doesn't pull over time or split or anything. But yeah, basically upper bag brackets will bolt in right up through the upper shock mount with a piece of all thread. The lower, we're going to trim this down flush with the rest of the control arm. You can see there's this hump. So we're going to cut that down, and then we've got a saddle that sits over that for the lower bag bracket and bolts in. And then from there, we just need to reassemble it and measure for the upper shock mount. It looks like we're going to come off of that tension rod and sneak it right up. Oops, I'm not even focused on the right spot. I think we're gonna go to the inside of the frame up in here for the shock tower. These frames sit out super wide. You can see how far the frame is. It doesn't leave a lot of clearance for steering. So we're going to put the shock inboard, and that way the wheel doesn't want to contact it when we go full lock or anything. So once that's done, we can reassemble the front, and then it's just on to running wires and lines and hooking up the management. We're about all set. So let's get on that and we'll see what we get done today. On the upper wishbone, we pulled that out yesterday, removed the original worn out bushings, replaced those with new ones, and same with the factory ball joint thingy for the wishbone. Replaced that yesterday. Just got to put a cotter pin on it once it's tight. Let me show you what we're doing with the lower arms here. So the factory stamped one is right here, in case you couldn't tell which one's which. Bushings are super wasted. So rather than spending $300 on replacing the bushings and then still needing to weld a plate on and all that, customer sent us these chromoly tubes he had made, and we are going to bend up and weld a bag mounting plate right about there. Just got to measure it up, bend this guy and get it welded on, and then this has urethane bushings that we'll be installing instead. So that takes care of the rear. Just basically at that point, new shocks, upper bag brackets, and bolt the Slam Specialties 7-inch bags in. So pretty straightforward on the rear stuff. We're not doing a disc brake conversion on this one or anything crazy, so a lot easier. All right, so we threw a little 60-degree bend on both sides of the bag bracket, measured up the original bars to match the position of the spring mount, and then we just basically put these on the table, measured the angle because the table's not 100% level, matched this, and threw a couple tacks on there. So now we're just going to TIG weld the perimeter of both sides, get it locked in, and then these things are ready to paint and install. All right, these welds aren't quite as pretty as the guys that made the actual bar, but they're strong, they'll work. We're gonna go ahead and get these painted and get them on the car. So rear end is fully assembled. We got the shocks in, we've got the lower bars installed, and the bags and upper brackets are in. And let me see if I can come up here. So you can see we sleeved, you can kind of see, we sleeved the airline with some fuel tubing coming out of the top of the frame. So that'll keep it from chafing on that hole. So we've left the lines just dangling for now. We're gonna run those over, and I think we're gonna end up putting a bulkhead plate right about here in the trunk. But we need to get it down and just see where that's gonna not be right in the way. Aside from that, we did a little more cutting up front. We wanted to make sure we had all the drop in the world, and you can see we're tucking a lot of wheel. So we did have to cut some more for clearance for the tension rod. So that ended up getting cut right across here on the bottom of the frame. I'm going to bend up a piece of 3/16 steel, and we're just gonna make like a little baby notch or tunnel for the tension rod to climb, to sit in when it's aired out. Measured for the upper bag bracket to make sure we've got the everything, bag goes flat right as everything's laid out. This is as low as you can get with the stock front suspension. The upper arm is touching the inner wheel well. His wheel is almost touching the inner fender support. Basically, kind of everything's binding at the same time. The bolts for the tension rod are hitting the frame where we pocketed it out. So yeah, this is about it. If you wanted to go lower, you really need to look into like chop and block control arms or whatever. But we've made it happen. I designed a bracket that should be here tomorrow, the next day. We're gonna weld that off of the tension rod, and that'll be a lower shock mount, and then the upper will weld up inside the frame. I ordered some shocks and those brackets, so once all that shows up, then we can get that all in position, and we'll have the bag in by then, and this thing should be ready to put on the ground. From there, we'll just need to wire and plumb, set up the trunk, and he wants height sensors also, so we're gonna go ahead and get those figured out. That's sort of the last piece. I wanna usually get the shocks figured out first, and then we can install the height sensors around them. Just usually works out better that way. Oh, he sent us a little mini starter, so we went ahead and installed that since it was up in the air. But yeah, other than that, kind of slow progress. We've been focusing a lot on parts production this past couple days, so that's been taking all of our time. But yeah, we'll be back at it again tomorrow, and let's see if we can get this thing on the ground pretty soon. So now we need to put that structure back. We've ground this back to bare metal, and we're just gonna use a piece of, here, I'll show you. I just took a piece of 1¼ inch tubing and cut it down the middle, and then we're going to slide that right in there and weld it in, and that'll get us all our structure back and leave a channel for the tension rod to go. If you look at the chop and block kits, they actually, their front tension rod section dips way down to clear that section of frame. So if you want to spend a little extra and do a little less work, that is a great option. Also has the shock bracket integrated and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're having to fabricate. It's not a big deal. The goal is the same, get the thing on the ground, right? So we already welded this side. I'll show you what we got. So where we had cut out the pocket around here, there's 2 layers of metal. So we just threw some welds along there to put that structure back in. And then that's where we welded the channel in for the tension rod. So just basically tied that all in, ground it back. And when it lays out, tension rod goes right in there until it touches right there. And yeah, that's full drop. So all we have to do now is shock bracket, and we need to cut this lower hump off of the lower control arm, because we're going to weld a lower bag plate right onto the arm. Just by getting rid of this hump, it lets us use a slightly taller cup, which puts the bag further out of the pocket and just makes everything a little happier. So a little extra work on the bottom to make less work up top. So yeah, let's get everything finished on the front, and then it's just down to waiting for shocks. And those should be here tomorrow, so I can finalize those mounts and get them welded in. But yeah, we're getting close on this thing. The wiring and plumbing is all routed up to the front, and we've started some of the trunk stuff. So when it's down off the lift, I'll show you what we got going on in the trunk too. All right, we've got the pockets cleared out, the edges welded up, we've got that little notch welded in, and we cut the hump off of the lower control arm and ground it flush. So what we're gonna do is weld just a circle plate right onto the lower arm. That combined with a 2-inch tall upper cup bolted right through the original shock mount is going to get us on the ground, we hope. It's a lot of work if it doesn't. But yeah, so next step, get these lower plates welded, paint the upper cups, paint all the cut and ground areas, and then we're ready to assemble and dial in the shock location. All right, so fully welded the lower plates to the arms, got everything cleaned up on top, threw some paint on it. We've got the upper cups waiting on another coat of paint as well. While that's drying, I'll go ahead and get the fittings installed on the front bags. And then I think we're ready to reassemble this front end and just make sure everything still clears the way it did before we put bags in it. Always good to check that before you bolt everything officially together and drop it down off the rack. But I think we're good. We checked clearances a bunch of times to do these little tube notches, so I think we're in good shape. So let's get it all together and we'll see what everything looks like. All right, so upper cup and bag and everything are in. So we ran the stud up through the factory shock mount. We had drilled a hole behind the upper cross shaft for the airline to come out. You can see we've got a little bit of fuel line wrapped around the airline where it goes into that hole to keep it from chafing on anything. The bag has a bunch of clearance all the way around it, so we're good there. Upper cup cinched down, lower mount is ready to swing up, and then we'll bolt the bag to that. And then assemble tension rod, and the front end is basically done minus shock mounts. So let's get that together and see how it all looks. Okay, so for shock brackets, I tack welded those lower mounts that I showed you last time, and then we had to make a slightly taller upper tower. You can kind of see it up in there. Still needs gusseting. We just kind of tacked everything in place for now just to prove that it clears everywhere as it cycles, and it does. So we're gonna go ahead and fully weld this side, and then we'll move to the other side, and shocks are done. So with the shocks mounted, got them up in there, all painted up and everything, should work really well. We're moving on to the height sensors. So for the front suspension, looks like this is going to be a really good location for them. There's no moving parts anywhere nearby. It's not in the way of anything. We've got a full range of travel available to us. There's just a couple inches of offset from this lower control arm out and up to this arm. So what I'm going to do is just make a little sheet metal tab that comes out with a little 90 for us to mount the sensor arm or sensor linkage onto, and then it'll go straight up and catch the backside of the sensor arm. Once we have the tab situated, I'll compress the suspension all the way, and then we'll set this basically at the top of its travel or close to it. We'll want to leave a little bit of room just for, you know, once it's on the ground, the extra weight of the vehicle sometimes compresses it more than a pull jack can, so we don't want to overextend anything. And then from there, we'll just cycle it and make sure that the amount of lift it has doesn't take it outside of parameters. But I think we're in the safe zone with this location. So let me figure out those lower brackets. We've got the uppers already mounted, and we'll get this thing dialed in. All right, so we spent a bunch of time yesterday dialing these in, but I think we're all set. So front height sensors are mounted right to the front cross member. We made some little extension brackets here to match up the sensor linkage on the right plane. I'm gonna have these laser cut, and I'll have measurements and everything for all you 61 through 64 Cadillac folks. So we've got front height sensors in a good spot, and moving to the back, we made some brackets there that drop down off of the spring pocket and line up with these tubular arms. I'll measure off of the stock lower arms and make some tabs to fit them as well. But yeah, this should give us everything we need. I think we're ready to put this on the ground and start putting the trunk together and getting this thing actually functioning and driving again. So let's get it down and get started on that. Well guys, that 61 is not on the rack anymore. It's not in the shop anymore. It's out front, and that means our time with it's coming to a close. And it's kind of bittersweet. I really, really like this car. It is just such a solid, nice driver. Looks great, and we got it super low. So let me give you a quick walk around and show you the trunk, show you what we did there, show you the controls, and then let's go for a quick spin around the block. Any opportunity to drive it before it leaves, I'm gonna take it. So let me switch the camera around. I'll show you what we got. Man, would you just look at this thing? Oh my cow. We'll give it a quick wipe down. It's going for detail after alignment and exhaust tomorrow, but I couldn't help just shining it up a little bit for for my cruises around the block, little shakedown runs. It is flat on the ground. That front cross member is touching the ground currently. The exhaust is on the ground. Rear, the drive shaft is in the tunnel, hitting there. The new wheels he has for it are 1.5 inches shorter, so I think we're going to get away with it. If he wants to bring it back and have us tunnel out raise the drive shaft tunnel for more clearance, well, hey, it's just another opportunity to get my hands on this thing, so I'm mad at it. Yeah, this, 61 wasn't my favorite, but it's definitely growing on me. Yeah, what a killer car. All right, let me show you what we got going on in the trunk. Plain and simple, we've got these panels that the customer brought us, and each side we've got a 2.5 gallon polished aluminum airlift tank, a Viair 480 compressor, and then over on this side we've got the airlift 3H. And to keep it all serviceable, I tucked the solenoid and all the wiring back here. He's talked about making some panels to kind of hide everything but the tank. Would be a good move. Over here is where all the airlines pop in. Again, you can carpet over that and it'll all disappear. But just sanitary. Love it. Under the hood, show you what we got going on. Nothing too crazy. If I can figure out how to pop it, it's here somewhere. There it is. So again, nothing too crazy. We did swap out the stock generator for a PowerMaster alternator. And there's the breaker for the air ride system. That's about it. Super simple, just clean. All right, moving inside. original. Went ahead and brought the controller wire out under the carpet, under the front seat, so you can tuck it away when you're not using it. All right. Let me fire it up real quick and I'll show you how the controls all work. Brake set. All right, so there's the 3H controller. So if you're not familiar with it, basically we've got 3 programmable presets on this thing. With the height sensors installed, once it's calibrated, you can basically program these 3 center buttons to be your regular ride height, you're like, oh crap, I gotta get into a driveway height, and you're like cruising in a straight line, barely off the ground height. And then top button's all up, bottom button's all down, and then you have these individual buttons to manually adjust the corners of the car. So if we hit the number 2, see? Now we're up to drive height. Let's shut the trunk lid here. There we go. If we got to get into one of those crazy driveways. Oops. There we go. There's your number 3 height setting. So just about, I think they say that's 90% of travel. And then if we're gonna just cruise a parade grounds or the boulevard or whatever, there's our just barely off the ground height. Too cool. And then hit that middle button again. Right back up to drive height again. Love it. You can also program it in the settings to maintain your ride height. So if you have someone get in on the passenger side and they weigh that side down, or you put a bunch of stuff in the trunk, or if you have a truck and you tow or whatever, it'll automatically sense that change in height and raise back up to compensate and always maintain the exact height you have it programmed to. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that's basic walk around. Let me hook this camera up real quick and let's go for a quick spin. All right, let's hit the road. It's kind of a gloomy day. I don't think any of the neighbors will be out, but if they are, let's give them a show. Trailered it down here from Kansas, but I have no doubt if you just wanted to hop in this thing and drive it all the way back, I think it'd do just fine. It is just so smooth. My neighborhood's roads are not the best. I'm sure the camera's shaking around a little bit on this suction cup now, but you guys are probably having a rougher ride than I am. This is so good. No real rattles or creaks or squeaks or anything. It just goes on down the road. they've seen it out front of the house enough. So what's next? Like I said, tomorrow it goes over, gets a proper alignment, gets the exhaust done, and then goes to the detailer. And he's supposed to come down, the owner is supposed to come down either tomorrow evening or Tuesday morning and take it on home. We're already on to the next car, which is a 1963 Lincoln. So we're documenting that one as well. Similar to the 61 we did last year. Chop and block front and rear. Airlift 3H height sensors again. Going to build out the trunk a little different this time. Maybe partner up with one of the local shops that's building some pretty cool tank bracketry. But yeah, really nice car as well. That one's already on some 18-inch, I think they're isotope wheels, so I'll have to show you that one in the next video. But had to take you along for a quick cruise with this guy. It is it's just such a great car. Neighborhood here is just over a mile to do the full loop. It's a good little good way to shake down a car after you've done an install without putting a bunch of wear on the tires before it gets aligned or anything. And I've got a little bit of a dip in the driveway, so it's also good to double check that your programmed ride height is adequate for standard clearance. Here we are, we're pulling back up to the shop. Let's loop it around real quick here. Back it on up to the door. Of course, you gotta lay it out when you get parked, right? Come on. You know how that goes. Pretty much it for this one. Like I said, it's one I'm sad to see leave. I don't usually fall in love with every single car that comes through here, especially by the time we're done doing all the work. I'm kind of ready to see it go, but this one really paid off in the final result. Just super clean, super low, kind of exactly what we want to be putting out of the shop. So pretty happy that everything turned out as well as it did. The owner was super cool with the modifications that we suggested and executed. Yeah, just lots to love. Yeah, I guess that's about it for this one. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Hopefully some of the detail shots we take on the suspension help you on your projects, help you figure out where, you know, if you have a 61 through 64 Cadillac, then obviously the stuff we did to this is directly relevant, but height sensor positioning and wiring routing, things like that are kind of fundamental to all vehicles. So hopefully we're documenting that well for you. If there's something else you want to see in future videos that we're not covering in the air ride world, feel free to send a message through our Instagram, Twisted Images, Facebook, which I think is at Twisted Images Store or something like that. We're the Twisted Images that isn't a tattoo shop. And of course, you can comment right down below in this video. I tend to get notifications for all those, so I'm happy to have a conversation with you about your project and help guide you into the right stuff. Again, thanks so much for watching. This is what makes it fun, you know, getting to cruise these cars around and make people enjoy their vehicles that much more. Yeah, all right, I'm rambling. Take it easy. Thanks, guys.